So, if you are here and you have not been on this adventure with us so far, do not worry about it. If there's a part in your mind that says, oh, but I'm missing something, that's okay. You can catch up later if you want to, and if you want to just let it go and experience the present moment, you can do that too. So welcome here to this collective consciousness that is called Unity Village Chapel. We are in the middle of a series, and we're about halfway through right now with a book by Jeff Foster called The Deepest Acceptance: Radical Awakening in Ordinary Life. So how many of you love the book? Raise your hand, give it a little shake. How many of you are totally disturbed? Give a little shake. How many of you are not willing to share? Give it a little shake. No, you're not even willing to share the shake. Okay, so it makes sense if by this point in the reading, if you are like, if you have found yourself intellectually frustrated, if you have found yourself emotionally frustrated, if you have taken the deep dive and you've gotten ahas and epiphanies and oh my gosh, or this fits with unity, this doesn't fit with unity, why are we reading this book? I had a text from someone, and I'm scanning the room, not for the person, but I had a text, I'm scanning the room for young people. Do we have any young people in the room right now? Okay, I can say this. So I got this text, and this is just funny. Now you have insight into my personality. But I got this message from someone this morning that said, not this morning, this week, and it said, was Reverend Erin doing shrooms when she picked this book? And then the rest of it went through the frustrations and then the epiphanies and then going, oh my gosh. And I said, spiritually, yes. I was reading this book at a point in my life where I was mystified by so many things going on in my life. I was in the middle of some real heart issues in the vision and the dream of having a child and building a family. I was also in the midst of some heart-wrenching, heartbreaking experiences with my own family, with my mother, and that relationship completely shifting and blowing my mind and not knowing, how is this the same relationship? How is this the same person? I never thought in all of my life that this could happen. So I was going through some serious moments in life with some things on the outside, right? Get this, that I absolutely could not control. And in unity, we do so much work, right? And some people can say thought control or whatever, but working with what am I doing? What am I bringing to this? What am I thinking, right? And that can be really frustrating when you reach an impasse, when you're like, I am doing all the work, but this out here, I can't change it, right? I just can't change it. And so this work for me brought a depth to our practice. A depth that I believe was embodied by the Fillmores, who searched through all religions, world religions, and all tribal cultures for the truth that binds them all. This brought a depth to the practice that I think that anyone that is really, really deeply immersed in any religion or in any spiritual practice, like at the height of it, right, totally gets, which is this letting go into grace, which is this state of allowing, which is a deep and peaceful centered state of acceptance, right? So you're not using your religion or your spiritual practice to control things. You might be using it to transform things on the inside or to be present in different ways. But this absolutely took me on an adventure and really supported me in a time that I needed support, and I needed what was next. I needed something else. So, plastic bottle, diamond ring. If you could pick up one today at the end of the service and take it home, let's just say $20,000 diamond ring, plastic bottle, okay? Which one would you like to have? Which one would you pick? Think amongst yourselves for a moment. Which one do you want? Do you want this one? Or do you want this one? I knew there was a 50-50 chance the experiment might work. You can have both. It points out a point in the book that in the eyes of a child, they don't know the difference, and the difference doesn't matter. It's like whichever one I want in the moment, whichever one is more fun, that's the one I'll have. It could just as easily be a plastic jug as a $100,000 diamond ring. And everything beyond that is construction, right? It's what we construct in our minds about things. Even the concept of a chair and saying that's a chair, right? That's an idea, but you don't know what it is until, as you grow up as a child, someone keeps telling you, right? Every morning with her, we're talking about what something is. Thank you, you're welcome. Ring, we're saying ring. We're saying plastic bottle. And that's how we become identified with the labels on things. So that is one of the parts of discussion in this week's reading. Say bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, when I was doing the work this week preparing for today, I realized that today should be different. So we all have our labels and our ideas, and you might have an idea of what sermon or talk is, right? And we might not fit that today. I sat down at an exercise bike with this book, and I had a period of time to do some certain things that I wanted to. And I got all ready, and I had this dedicated time, and it was limited, but I had this dedicated time, and I had the book, and I sat down at this exercise bike, and then it was like I looked in my purse for a pen. Some of you can't see me, and I can't see you. I looked in my purse for a pen, and I was like, how is it that I don't have a pen in my purse? But then I thought about Jeff Foster in the book. A pen is not a pen. And I pulled out my eyeliner. And with all of the judgments in my mind about how expensive this pen is compared to another pen, I realized I could just put a little mark on each spot and smudge it. Mark, smudge it. Because this can be a pen if you want it to be. Amen? Are you getting a sense of what this chapter is about? This chapter is about present moment awareness. And so I invite us to just take a deep breath on this morning. To allow yourself the space for an adventure, for an opening of the mind. Are you willing to have your mind opened? Are you willing to let go of everything you think you know about everything? All of the assumptions. So that we can enter into a different conversation that might lift up some crystallized ideas that keep us in limitation. That might loosen some concepts and some assumptions that could keep us stuck. So I invite you to take a deep breath and to slow it down this morning. That doesn't mean I might speed it up, so you don't have to put a note in the offering basket. It's okay about how fast I talk. I get those, and I get it. So we'll slow it down this morning and really enunciate. Because we're going to create the space to begin to notice things. So just take a minute and move through the room with your eyes. Look at where you are. Just move through the room. Notice. And then feel the chair that you're sitting in and just notice what you're sitting on. Just notice the details of it. What it feels like. The different elements. Look at anything that catches your eye. Look at the way the light comes in the room. The light's shining on us. just noticed a prayer flag I've never noticed before. Through a window. Notice any sounds you hear. Have you ever heard someone take a lozenge or a piece of gum out in the middle of service? It's like fireworks on the 4th of July. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Feel the armrest. Notice if your arm is touching the person next to you just slightly. Feel the floor on your feet. Try to notice where your clothes touch your body, where you can feel those touch points. And now I invite you to just close your eyes. Now see what you notice. Are the sounds the same or different? Is there a scent? Check into your body awareness. Is anything tight or hurting? Can you notice the breath and the feeling that you are breathing or being breathed? And can you feel you in this moment? Not all the thoughts about you, not all the roles, not how you arrived exactly where you are. Just a deep sense of you. Not your partner or your friend or your solo-ness. You. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and come to this moment. Welcome back to the next thing that's happening. This is a little bit like a retreat with Jeff Foster. You sit, you talk, and you look at what's in front of you. And then you close your eyes and you meditate and have some space. So, he goes through a lot of concepts. This was quite a large chapter compared to a lot of the other chapters in this book. I can only imagine that it's because the present moment is one of the key pieces, right, in the practice, in any spiritual practice that leads to awakening, though there's a lot of focus on not trying to lead into anything in his work. We're going to dive into a few of the concepts here, just in conversation. He refers, and if you have not checked this out, there's a summary on, I think, page 120 and 121. There's a summary of everything that we've gotten to so far. So if you wanted to just read that part to catch up, you would get an idea. But he says this, he says, Jesus once said, you have to lose your life to save it. You have to lose your life to save it. He says that statement always puzzled me. It seems like the ultimate paradox until I realized that perhaps he was pointing to the total intimacy between what I am in my essence and life itself. This totally lines up with unity principles and I think the consciousness of the master teacher as he was giving lessons to help someone loosen their human identity, loosen their labels, loosen their mind's ideas of the wars that need to happen and the peace that needs to come down around us. And he kept bringing people inward. And that idea that when you go inward, you have to lose your life to save it. When you're looking for peace, you will actually be disturbed and then you will wake up. It's a deep spiritual concept that leads us to the idea and the possibility that when we let go of what we think is us, all of the things we accumulate, all of the stories we tell about ourselves, when we let go of that, we actually find the deepest sense of self, which is a self beyond a self. It's oneness. It's that I and humanity are one. It's I and God consciousness are one. It's that it's only through the mind that we segment and separate these things in order to make a story, in order to create reason, in order to have advanced ideas and even have conversations around these things. In fact, in unity music, we often have a hard time finding music that can totally fit with unity philosophy. Because even some of our greatest music, even when we look at some of the greatest lyrics, it can still be outside being done unto me. It can still be an outside spirit, an outside God, pour yourself in me. Like, I'm over here, come to me. It's almost that in conversation, just to have a conversation, right, you have to separate into two different things. But we're sometimes challenged for having concepts that live up to that oneness idea, because languaging and experience just in itself separates us. One of the big explorations I want to have here today is labeling. And Jeff Foster says this: you can experience something in your world, a car, a tree, pain, frustration, a cheese sandwich, the sun, a spoon, only if on some level you tell yourself what you are experiencing. In order to experience anything, you must have a thought story about what that thing is. Otherwise, you have no way of knowing what you are experiencing. Without the story, you really have no way of knowing what you are looking at. Thought labels everything that appears. This gives us insight into the idea of become like little children. Become like the one that doesn't know the label yet, that doesn't have the word. Because the moment I label things a word, I exclude it from being a real resource. See what I'm saying? This sounds trite when we're talking about an eyeliner, you know? But it's huge. Does anyone else here feel like they have a MacGyver mind? I do. It's one of my spiritual gifts. But I can just stand there in a room for something that needs to be fixed, and I just keep going, and I'm like, I go into this little realm of, there's something here that's the key. If I can let go of everything I think I know about what's missing or what would fix this thing that's unfixable, right? I did that in Home Depot this week. I went to try to have a solution for my balconies. I'm not sure that I'm there yet. An attractive, let me say, solution for my non-child-friendly balconies that are too wide and a baby could just fly through. So right now I have a plastic sheet up, which I'm not too fond of, that I never finished securing to the sides. Because in my mind, I know there's something that will work, that will be a permanent fix. When we make that transformation, when we can enter a state of consciousness where we let go of the ideas and the labels, we live in the infinite universe. We are more accessible to spirit, to source, to ideas, to visions, to innovations. You hear me? Like, we are more accessible to it because we're not looking at what's in front of us and trying to rearrange it and make it fix, right? So whether this applies to your bank account and your way of making money, whether it applies to your marriage or your relationship, whether it applies to your family, all of this can be lifted up if we get out of our limited ideas. How many of us crucify ourselves or someone in our life because they don't fit the idea or image that we have of them or of the standard in which we are not fitting, right? But if we were willing to just look with new eyes again, where the window or the mirror was cloudy or dim, now I see clearly through. Now it is bright. Now there is light. We can, from this practice, transform our experience of our resources, of the source that is all around us all the time, when we practice and engage this idea of loosening up the mind. He goes on to say, you meet the world for the first time. You meet the world for the first time. Like to Georgia, a toilet paper roll is not a toilet paper roll. It is just as much of a toy as the one you could buy at the toy store. Just as much. And then what do we do as humans and as adults? So often we go into the ideas of no, no, no. That's not what that is. Rather than opening our minds and going, so she unravels all the toilet paper. Maybe I can teach her to put it back into a bucket, and I can just pull toilet paper out of a bucket for a while. Maybe it doesn't have to be on a roll. Maybe they don't have to learn those things are no, no, no. Maybe they could learn that that's creative, that that's play, that that's ideas. And maybe by the time they get to an age where they know what toilet paper is, they're not going to be that interested in pulling it off the roll anymore. Just maybe. He says, you are in the Garden of Eden, and nothing has been named yet. You are in the Garden of Eden, and nothing has been named yet. That gives us a glimpse into the metaphysics of the Garden of Eden story. Take that one home for spiritual homework. He goes on to talk about how we have to have a dialogue with ourselves. We have to have these ideas to tell ourselves of what we're experiencing. In other teachings, it goes into the concept that we're meaning-making machines. That's what we do. So it's like, why fight with that? Just understand that we're meaning-making machines. But know thyself. Know your mind. The second concept I want to explore today is identity. So he goes into this idea of our identity. In order to experience your mother, father, sister, brother on some level, you must tell yourself or remind yourself who they are. Without your story about who they are, you have no way of knowing who they are, do you? Take a deep breath. Take another one for everyone you know that is in your mind as the story of who they are to you. I'll read that part again. Without your story about who they are, you have no way of knowing who they are, do you? Without your story, you meet them quite literally for the first time. Without your story, you meet them quite literally for the first time. Without your story, he says, there's only total intimacy. Without your story, there's only total intimacy. Beyond the story, there is love. Love means not to. Charles Fillmore called love the great harmonizer. That harmonizer. If you sing music, you know when you do harmonies, you move into a place where you're making a oneness. You don't do and learn harmonies by coming as two forces, two conflicting forces. You create harmonies by finding that sweet spot that all of your voices become one. You don't want to be louder than anyone else. You don't want to be quieter than anyone else. You actually want to harmonize. He goes on to say, however, we forget that we are experiencing our own stories about the world, our own thoughts, our own labels, our own interpretations, our own memories, our own prejudices, our own fears, our own conditioning, and our own dreams. We forget that we are experiencing, he says, a projection of our own dream. He goes on to say, this forgetting is the origin of all loneliness, isolation, and depression. Is there anyone that has had a relationship with a child, with a coworker, with a friend, with yourself, with a parent, with a partner, that you realize that when we don't try to be anything, we're okay? When we don't try to be anything, we're okay. But when we try to fit into the world's idea, my parents' idea, your parents' idea, education's idea, the U.S. idea, another country's idea, an idea you don't even know where you got it from, an idea that's expired. There are a lot of ideas that are expired. When we don't try to be anything, we're okay. Can we tell that to ourselves? When I don't try, it sounds like counterproductive. Like there are no goals in there. This is no New Year's Eve sermon. It's emancipating, though. When I don't try to be anything, I'm okay. He goes on to share a story, and I want to highlight this because this is a lot of the work that we do in Unity. You know, the part about in order to experience your mother, father, brother, sister on some level, you must tell yourself or remind yourself a story about them, right? We do a lot of work in Unity. If you take a workshop, if you take a class, if you read some texts about just letting go of images and ideas, because we do have these stories, right? And then we project them and we re-project them, and we hold people captive to the limitations of our mind. And that is not what we call beholding the Christ in someone. Beholding the Christ in someone is being willing to be in full intimacy in any moment. Being willing to meet someone new, like you're in the Garden of Eden. It's being willing to be in and experience a relationship without judgment. How many of you have ever felt held captive by someone else's idea of you? Yeah. How many of you have felt like that idea of you actually expired a long time ago? It's really hard, isn't it, when it's expired for you, but it hasn't for someone else? What tends to happen? There tends to be kind of a frame, and somehow your face ends up in the middle of it. It's like a frame, a picture frame. They're carrying it around. They're trying to look at you. You're trying to dash it. You're like, no, I'm not that anymore. I'm not like that anymore. But they're walking around in a frame, and eventually, boom, there you are, right in the middle of it. Snapshot. Validation. Because what we have in our minds, we know this much about spiritual and mental science. What we have in our minds, we will look for it. We will find it, and we will. I know we just say inside, we go, no, no, no. But we will find it because our minds are meaning-making machines. We look for the validation that what we think is true and it is reality. It doesn't mean it's reality. If I buy a yellow bug, a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, I will see more of them on the road because I am looking for it. If I think you are some way, I will see you show up in all these ways, all these ways, all these ways. And if there is an inkling that you are the way I think, I will find it, I will point to it, even if that wasn't your intention, and I will fill my story and say, aha, there it is, because the mind wants to be successful in its generating of a reality around who you are. So Jeff Foster goes in on a separate section, and he talks about running into an old friend, an old person that he hasn't known for years, and he says that he had this realization: everyone lives with their own version of me. Everyone lives with their own version of me. Can you feel that? Can you get into that? I noticed that a while ago with my friendships. I have some friends that think I'm ditzy. I have some friends that think I'm a hippie. I have some friends that think I'm very Virgo. I have some friends that think I am incredibly courageous. I have some friends that probably think I'm a wimp. Think about all of the images of you that are out there based on what someone experienced of you, whether it is at a traffic stop or every Christmas or in your home or in your own mind. Which you are you? Are you one of the ones that's running around outside in other people's minds? Are you the one in your own mind? Or is it possible you are none of them? Is it possible that we are the one that is there when we are stripped of our story? We are the one that is there when the story no longer exists. He says, without referring to the past or the future, who are you right now? Who are you right now? Without the past, without the future. I think that this is one of the most significant lines in the book. Not because it brings us to any sort of epiphanies, not because it's so intellectually stimulating, but because if we totally breathe into it, we totally get it, and we totally live by it, it will absolutely change how we show up. Are you ready? Some of you are like, I can't wait till she starts talking fast again. Stands up from that chair. I'm not going to do it today. You have never experienced this moment before and never will again. Can you feel that? You have never experienced this moment before, and you never will again. Just look at everyone in this room. We can see you too right there, live streamers. Just look around your room, look in this room, just look. Like this moment. Can you feel an intimacy in that? If just that was with us constantly, we would tread lightly on this earth, and we would enter each other's hearts with grace and possibility and love. Namaste.